Hello and welcome back for some more Pokemon from memory. Let's jump right in here with number 127, which is, of course, Penzer. One of the original 150-ish, a very iconic bug Pokemon that's based on a stag beetle. I didn't start with a good base for any of the Pokemon I did in the last one, so this time I'm going to draw the main shape of his body, which is very easy to remember, and I'm going to work out from there. I'm just realizing that Hitmonlee and Pinsir have a very similar body structure, and they're both sort of the same color too. And the first thing I think of whenever I hear Pinsir is in fact the Pinsirs. I'm sure that's not where they named this creature, or why they named this creature that at all. I wonder if this is one of the first Pokemon they ever designed, since the game was based off of one of the hobbies of the creator, whose name I can't remember, and I know it's not Miyamoto. It's the other guy, because he had a love for collecting insects, and how different of a game and anime it would have been if the game had only been based on collecting bug types. It probably wouldn't have been something that necessarily caught my interest. May have been a lot like that show with the chefs that cooked up food and then threw a card in it, and the food came to life and did battle with each other for some reason. I can't remember the name of that show.
But one mysterious chef knew just what His Highness was talking about.
Your Highness, I know just what you're talking about.
Fighting for us is something incredible. These monsters once were edible, so everybody take a look at combat creatures you can cook.
Nice to meet you.
But I do remember that the main character had a monster named Fried Ricer. He had a plate on his head, and like the fried rice was the mouth, so the rice would separate from the plate, and that's how he would talk. I don't know, super weird show. It's kind of tough to draw spikes from different angles without using any shading, especially if they're facing the camera. I'm not sure exactly how his Pinsir's clothes. They don't really have any muscly bits. They just go straight into the carapace. Or is that just for crustaceans? Straight into his exoskeleton. I think that's more accurate. But it definitely wouldn't be fun to get stuck in there, that's for sure. And I have no idea why I'm spending so much time on these. Something I remember for sure is he had donuts for shoulders, and long noodly arms. And most of you might expect to have some sort of bug part at the end of his arms for hands, but in fact, he actually has gloves, like an old Disney character. And fun fact, old Disney characters had gloves, because it was in black and white, and whenever the characters' hands would pass in front of their bodies, they were also black and their bodies were black, it would kind of disappear. So they made their hands white so that they could get some more angles on there and do things with the hands in front of the character's body. I mean, I could be completely wrong, actually, now that I think about it. I think I heard it in either a podcast or some sort of YouTube thing a long time ago, but I don't know, it could be right for all I know. I'd like to imagine he's twiddling his fingers as he's about to cast a spell or something. These white gloves always remind me of magicians for whatever reason. Well, I might as well give him some donuts for hips to match his donut shoulders. And wait, oh gosh, are these just Mr. Mime's hands and arms? I'm probably doing this wrong, but we'll come back to that. I can't forget his iconic striped sweater. I think in order to be Mr. Mime hands, they actually are missing those little weird finger pad things that he has. All Pokemon have angry eyes, right? Gosh, what does his face even do? But Mr. Mime is probably one of the creepiest Pokemon, right after Jinx and Smoochum, I guess. I don't really like the idea of any humanoid Pokemon. They're probably the worst to put into Pokeballs, too. I mean, Machoke is just a creepy buff man. Alakazam is basically the smartest thing to have ever existed. I think Abras are actually just weird-looking children, according to one of the Dex entries, but let's not talk about Dex entries right now. I think I'm always going to have a hard time dealing with their faces. Right now, he looks super meh about the way I've drawn him. He's just like, come on, man. Does he have a nose? I guess beetles don't really have noses. So probably not. Alright, back to stalling while I think of what to do with his face. I feel like there's something super specific about it that will be oh so obvious whenever I see it, but for now I have no idea. I'll never be able to work at Scotland Yard as one of those super recognizer detectives who watch CCTV cameras all day looking for people on a wanted list or related to some crime in some way. But I am feeling confident about this type of hand. Let's go ahead and start with his thumb. Even though I think I'm drawing the thumb on the wrong side of the hand. Oy vey. Here we go. Alright. That's a thumb. Sure. Not quite as good as the other hand. Alright, I've got it. Bear with me here. But I've just remembered exactly what his face looks like. Bam! Oh, wait. That's Snorlax's face, isn't it? What is the deal with your face? Alright, fine. You asked for it, Pinsir. You get 2 little dots for eyes and a squiggle mouth. It's just like that Ditto that couldn't transform correctly. That girl that had the Dittos. She had the best Dittos. She had, like, I don't remember what they were called or anything. I know they had weird names. But she had one that had a wonky face whenever it tried to transform into other Pokemon. But I mean, I guess that's kind of fun, because it might throw off the Pokemon it's fighting, because it'll see it and think it's just way too derpy. Also, I would never have a hard time telling which Pokemon is mine during a fight, or if they got mixed up somehow. And then she had that one Ditto that became small, a small version of that Pokemon, but that's so good. It's a great party trick. And you don't have to worry about it just transforming into an Onyx or something and smashing your house by accident. And she was a performer, so I can understand not really wanting to have the derpy-faced one because she wasn't really a comedian or whatever. But the tiny one could do great in an act that either wasn't in a huge theater or was like sort of a magic show kind of thing. I guess I'm stuck on that now, where you would have the regular Ditto transform into something, and you'd say, "Now I'm going to shrink the creature down," and then you'd kind of hide it behind a curtain or whatever. And that large Ditto would disappear and replace, or like get off stage and then be replaced by the small Ditto that would transform into the same creature, and you'd pull back the curtain and it would look like you just shrunk it down, and nobody would be able to figure that out. But whatever, she didn't like either of them. She tried to train them to look like normal things instead. I think I'm pretty much done, other than fiddling with this terrible foot for way too long. I'll just fix it whenever I go to color it, but for now, I've spent way too much time on this first Pokemon. Especially for how bad many of its bits look. I need to fix this glove too. Alright, let's see how this boy looks. Well, my Ditto that transformed into the Penzer did not do a very good job. He got the structure very similar, and somehow remembered that he had 4 bits on his exoskeleton, 4 lines, but not much else. Yeah, let's move on to the next one. Next is 494, Victini. I think the only time I've ever seen Victini is actually in one of the movies. I can't really remember, but I do know that it had a V-shaped head with very large ears, and its head was also pretty cat-like, like a lot of Pokemon. I think pretty much like half the Pokemon are cats of some kind. Mew is just a pink, hairless cat. Snorlax is a cat that ate way too much. Abra's a weird child cat. Meowth is just a cat. I'm gonna tilt his head just a bit and kind of have him floating free in space. I'm pretty sure Victini can fly, right? This one's just a pretty chill Victini, though. It just kind of floats backwards in midair, not really worrying about the day-to-day stuff. I think in the movie, whenever they saw Victini for the first time, Brock was like, "Dang, look how chill that Pokemon is." And it, you know, since all Pokemon that star in movies can talk human for whatever reason, it was just like, "Sup," and kept floating backwards. Now that I think about it, Victini was in black and white, right? So I actually don't think I've watched any of the movies with Victini in it, so I don't know where I've seen him. But I'm pretty sure it had pretty large eyes. But I can't seem to fit them in this headspace I've created. Once again, the hardest part for me to draw, well, at least in the ballpark of what the character actually looks like, is the face. I can sort of mess up the overall shape, but make it look enough to where, or make it look similar enough to where it's recognizable at least, to what it's supposed to be. But if I just had to draw the face and then show it to somebody, nobody would ever be able to guess what it is I'm actually drawing. And I remember his mouth had some teeth showing up top, but also that it was like, he was basically a fox, I think? And he had a nose of some sort, stupid, but I can't remember quite how it sunk into his face or how big it was or anything. Yeah, and he definitely had something on the side of his face. Maybe his little sideburn puffs. but they had to be very pointy because everything on him was pointy. There's no, I guess his body's pointy in this one, but there are no soft edges. He might also have something on his head, probably the same kind of tuft, like the cheeks had. And I think I have a guess what his eyes were for. What? I think I have a guess what his eyes were like. Keeping with the chill body, he just kind of, you know, his eyes are kind of relaxed. This actually looks more like, well, less like a Pokemon and more like a bad Tails knockoff, and that had a few questionable brownies. I had a really hard time getting out that sentence. I tend to start talking about Pokemon as its and theys, I guess, to not have them be gender specific, but I always end up calling them he's and boys. It's probably because I'm a male, and my biases tend to make things that have sort of a gender neutral appearance to be more like me, I guess. Except whenever I'm making characters for D&D or other RPGs. As a DM, I probably make more or equal amounts of important female characters. I don't know what I was doing when I first drew this arm stretched out there. I think I was going to have it casually waving, but I think it's too stretched out for that. And I think I was trying to rest the other arm on his gut, but I didn't really draw much of a gut for him to rest it on. But Pokemon always have really defined paw prints, right? I'm sure that's not a thing, but this one does. And maybe his left hand is just scratching his belly. I don't know. I'm tempted to draw a double tails like Tails, but I don't think there are any Pokemon that actually have two tails. So I'm just gonna stick with my gut and keep it one-tailed. I never have any sort of plan whenever I start drawing these. They just kind of morph into whatever they're gonna be as I'm drawing them. Maybe I should take a couple of minutes before I start to sort of plan it out, but I still need to put some happy feet on there. I don't think this Victini would ever walk on them, though. Maybe after it's had too many of its favorite brownies from that one guy in the park that feeds it. I think this Victini has actually probably been captured a couple of times, but no one wants to keep it because it's always asking for snacks instead of battling. Of course, I still don't know how animal legs and feet work, but this is probably about as good as it's gonna get. I do need to add one of those different colored bellies that all of my Pokemon have for some reason. And I think I'm basically done with this guy. I just need to add some wavy lines to indicate motion and add some nice eyebrows for safety. Let's see what this knockoff Tails is supposed to look like. Dang, I should have gone with the double tail. It's very different from how I would have imagined it, but let's keep this truck moving and get on to the next one, which is number 529, Drilbur. I'm having a hard time picturing this one, but I think it's one of the mole creatures. Even though it has drill in its name, I'm pretty sure that both of its hands were some sort of scooping thing rather than an actual drill. I'm not sure where the drill part even comes from, or the burr part. Maybe they weren't scoops, but they were like two backhoes stuck together to kind of scoop stuff up and close and break rocks. Good Englishing. It's much like the Pokemon version of clamps from Futurama. Except I'm pretty sure this is one of the first forms of the Pokemon, so it probably is just way too happy and not super threatening. Let's just open up one of the claws to kind of show the clamping motion, or also so it's not doing the same thing with both of its hands. The arbitrary position I've drawn its hands kind of giving me the imagery of one of those dancers that dances with like the clackers in their hands. So I guess I've given myself sort of a bit of a challenge to draw this one in a pose that has some sort of motion behind it. Speaking of Futurama, a while ago, a lot of TV shows don't actually talk about the TV shows that exist in their universe. Most of them just show the news or whatever to let characters that aren't there know what the main characters are doing. I guess Pokemon did actually have a lot of TV shows, but they never really talked about the ones that weren't starring Pokemon. I guess it'd be pretty interesting to see what our TV shows would look like if they were remade with Pokemon in some of the key roles. Actually, probably not, since most Pokemon can't actually say words and they just have to do that dumb voiceover thing that they do. Honestly, all the movies and TV shows that are in the Pokemon world just look like the equivalent of people filming their cat or dog and putting it up on YouTube. I'm tempted to change its nose to one like the star-shaped mole, but I don't think they actually have those. I mean, there might be other Pokemon that have star-shaped noses, though. Shinx has sort of a star-shaped shale. Oh, that's a word. Tail. I've probably already said this, but the Shinx line are probably my favorite Pokemon. I don't know how strong they actually are, but I like some big lightning cats. Does Drilbur have some sort of cheek pouches, or is that just something that's reserved for electric types? I can't really remember any Pokemon that have it other than Pikachu, though. Wow, its left arm is like 1.5 times longer than its right arm. Maybe because it has to be bigger to hold up the slightly larger claw on that hand, or maybe it's stretched out from that larger claw. Or maybe I'm just really bad at planning and drawing proportions. But I would love to have a 3-chain evolution of electric dogs and bird Pokemon as well. I mean, they sort of had an electric dog, Manectric, but I don't really like the way it looks. I don't know if that's a popular Pokemon or not, but it just doesn't seem to be an attractive design to me. I don't know why. There was also Jolteon, but I didn't really like it because it had needles for fur, and I wouldn't really want to pet that or snuggle it. And I guess what's the pet? What's the pet of having points? What's the point of having pets if you can't do either of those things? I mean, I guess teaching them tricks is pretty cool, and Pokemon can learn a lot of tricks pretty well. Are there regular animals in the Pokemon universe? I mean, Lillipup and the such are just regular dogs, but Pikachu is always described as the electric mouse, so is there just a regular mouse somewhere that definition comes from? And I think there was an episode where they were talking about eggs or snakes or something, and there was a mongoose in there, or something. I really don't remember. Don't worry, I'm still really bad at and take way too much time when drawing animal legs. Most of my animal legs do look the same kind of wrong, though, so I guess I have that going for me. I wish there was someone here to make fun of every line I put down on the paper. It's not even paper. I think it needs to be whistling or something. You know, doing some activity that you need breath for while you're doing some rigorous dance maneuvers that take away your ability to breathe. And as I've said, I'm not a good breather. I always run out of breath before I'm tired when I'm running. And of course I need to add my signature different colored belly. I guess I'm never gonna try to think of what pattern might be on a Pokemon. And it has to have something on top of its head that transforms into the spike crown thing on its next stage. Probably some sort of mohawk, because that makes the most sense for the way it's posed. Or whatever. Sometimes I say the dumbest stuff, but I don't even realize it until I listen back to the recording. I think I'm almost done, but I do need to give some depth to its claw thing over here. And I just realized I just put the head of Trapinch on its mitts. Good job. Alright, I think that's good enough. Time to see how far off I was. Well, I got the idea that it is a mole. I just need to remember that Pokemon are just animals where everything is extremely exaggerated. Alright, well, Penzer might be the best one so far. Try to beat that next time. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, don't forget to leave a thumbs up. It helps me out. Also, leave a comment below with suggestions on what I should draw. If you want to watch more of this stuff, there are 2 videos on the screen. The YouTube AI overlords think you'll like the one on the right. And if you haven't already, click the circular cartoon face to subscribe. And I'll see you in the next one.